All right, peace, love, and light, family. Peace, peace. Back again. Frequency. The sound. Entering the void through sound. Tuning in to Mama's frequency. The frequency of the source. The frequency to the plug. Powerful. Very powerful. One is coming to the consciousness. Rising up. Breaking spells. One is breaking spells of words cast upon one's being, born in through enslaved mental minds of the lower self, breaking through, focused on the righteous path, focused on connecting to the source, focused on the mission of becoming one's authentic self, one's divine self, etheric being, melanated being, astral consciousness. I am Om, Son of the Universe. Today's video one is going to be talking about Christ consciousness and giving some information and reflecting light plugged into the source, from the source, plugged into Mama, plugged into Mama, skin to ground, bare feet. Mama speaks through me. Mama speaks through my being, my astral being, and I project information and wisdom and light, knowledge to all reflections to raise the consciousness of creation, to level one's consciousness up. God, frequency, light, the Christos, Christ consciousness is a frequency, a state of one's mind. The Christ consciousness is a state, an elevation, operating on a high frequency, coming into clarity, clairvoyance, understanding of what this realm is, being able to articulate, interpret, and express this through one's authentic being, astrologically. When one studies astrology, one comes face to face in the mirror with one's authentic being, the expression of this Christ conscious, the expression of the fragmented piece of this collective consciousness from the archetype, from God, wanting to express itself through one's being. When one studies astrology, one studies self. When one studies and observes, analyzes beings, objects, and things one believes to be outside of oneself, one is observing self, one observing its surroundings, inner surroundings, from inside, being projected externally, which is internally. One is just receiving signals from inside one's being, from a space in the mind, through neurons. We are part of a collective consciousness. Just as one explained, in one of my old videos, I explained to one my reflections about the sun and how the sun is a converter for dark matter. Dark matter is ether. And the sun fragments this ether, this etheric, this dark matter into colors and frequencies ranging from red to purple to black on the electromagnetic spectrum. Now, the same thing can be said for Christ consciousness. Christ conscious, if one looks at it in the blueprint and example that one has given from electromagnetic spectrum, frequency, and colors, same thing can be said for Christ consciousness. Fragmented up, a collective consciousness, the God conscious, the archetypes consciousness, fragmented in different levels of high vibration and low vibration frequencies and consciousness. Some beings are on a lower level of consciousness, and some beings are on a higher, high vibrational level of consciousness. But all of this consciousness is one. It's all one, fragmented from the God conscious, for one to be able to experience itself. This realm, this reality, all in existence is just a collection of God's conscious for one to be able to experience self. One is conscious enough. We are in the time in the cycle where one is becoming conscious of self, but not so conscious that one remembers everything of self and remembers every detail of self, because this would defeat the purpose of one creating a consciousness, separate consciousness. When one creates and fragments these consciousness, it is only for experience. It is only for one to forget, so one can feel and realize and come into one's consciousness again. If one is all of this consciousness and one is everything, wouldn't one feel bored? Wouldn't one get tired? Wouldn't one get wouldn't one feel like there was no pleasure? Wouldn't one feel as if one was not having a sense of purpose or feeling or experience? When one fragments when one fragments from God conscious fragments its divine consciousness up into many forms of frequency, one gets to experience, one gets to feelize, one gets to go and grow through, just as one does in a game, in order to come to the consciousness of what it is, and then forget, to experience again, because one is everything. One is the only one in existence. So for one to only experience and be able to have some type of feeling, one has to go through these, one has to fragment itself up and forget and compartmentalize and create reality, the conscious reality for one to experience. The Christ consciousness, tapping into the Christ consciousness. All the things that Om has been giving to my reflections key information, detaching oneself from what no longer serves, breaking spells of words, not using any, not casting any spells of hate, casting any negative signals, or sending any negative signals out, because one will receive negative signals back, because one is everything. Getting in tune with Mama. When one taps into the frequency of nature, taps back into the source, comes to the consciousness of what reality is and what oneself is, and is vibrating on a high vibrational consciousness and understanding of one's astral energy, and becoming one's astral energy, becoming one's free form expression of the Christ consciousness of God. One will tap into the Christ conscious, the Christos, the high frequency, the high vibration. All of what one gives you, information and reflecting this light, are tools to guide one's being, to guide oneself into the higher consciousness, to the Christ consciousness. If one follows all tips that have been given, all the information that one has given self, one will make it to the Christ consciousness and to other realms and to other dimensions. What one is doing in this lifetime, every movement, one making these videos and sharing them with my reflections, one making posts, one eating the right proper foods, tapping into nature, all of these things are affecting another reality, creating another reality for one to experience. This realm is testing grounds. This realm is testing grounds for one to learn and be able to maneuver energy, to learn how to maneuver one's energy astrologically, from an astrological consciousness, from the higher self. When one learns how to maneuver energy consciously, because many beings in Babylon, many beings in the lower self are doing this unconsciously, but when one becomes conscious of this, one has control of when one can maneuver and manipulate energy. And then one becomes a creator and one understands. When one is doing this unconsciously, one does not realize that what each and everything that one is doing is affecting and creating the realm that is set up for one in the next cycle, in the next time, in the next form, in the next reality. So when one acts negatively, when one sends out negative signals, when one isn't following 42 laws of Ma'at or the commandments, these things were real. These things are real. The Bible and scriptures and testaments that were written were consciousness, were states of consciousness, spoken in parables, or states of consciousness, because when one reads and one conceptualizes the Bible, it can be understood in many levels of consciousness. But when one is vibrating at a high consciousness, one can read and one can interpret, iterate, and be able to analyze all that was said in a high frequency and be able to apply it to one's life. Do unto others what you would want another to do unto you. Meaning, treat others how one would want to be treated. Because you are them. Everything is a reflection of self. So when one takes the 10 Commandments, when one takes the 42 laws of Ma'at and applies them to oneself and changes the way one speaks, one will understand on a high frequency of high consciousness that everything is a reflection of self. And when one takes out you, when one takes out they, and separates and takes out words of separation, one will no longer want to hate. One will no longer want to be negative, because one can't say, I hate myself. Fuck me. All these things that one harbors with hate and emotion, negative emotion, low vibrational frequency of emotion, and low vibrational thoughts, which demons are demons. Demons are just a low vibrational thought. When one harbors all these and takes out the separations of words, one realizes and comes to consciousness that one is everything, and everything is that being. So one cannot have hate, because one would be casting spells upon self. One has to come into the consciousness that they are everything and everything is them. One is everything and everything is one. One should heed the messages and heed this knowledge, the knowledge that is being given. And this knowledge isn't for everyone. Some will hear, collect information, come back another cycle and do it over again, and keep growing and keep growing, going and growing through obstacles, and keep going and growing through lessons of pain until one can reach the higher consciousness, until one can reach Christ consciousness, the Christos, and then ascend into other realms and creating realms of higher positive vibrations. But till then, one will suffer, one will experience pain, one will have to grow through. This is reality. This is clarity. This is divine. This is what? This is everything, and this is nothing at the same time. In reality, in a sense, it is all irrelevant. But in a sense, it's not, because one is experiencing it. One is a part of it. One can't separate itself from it. So one has to go through and come to the conscious level of understanding. All paths lead to the source. Eventually, all have come back to the source in one cycle or another. So one will have to come back to the source and do this over and over again. But one's not conscious that one has done it, so it does not become a hindrance and boring and already experienced. One must experience. One cannot conceptualize something that is supposed to be experienced. So one must come to this consciousness. One must come to this state of mind. One must be one with oneself. If one is not in harmony with their being, then one is not in harmony with surroundings. One is not in harmony. Everything in nature is in harmony. Everything in nature is on a cycle, interdependent on each other, coexisting ecosystem. This is what one must become a part of. Beings talk about being supernatural and having supernatural powers, but how can one become supernatural if one is not natural? If one isn't understanding or on the path of understanding oneself and putting in the work of understanding astrology and many of things that are on a high frequency of understanding, to create a realm in another reality, another dimension, to become supernatural, to become one's higher consciousness, breaking through the levels and levels. There's levels. There's levels to everything. Levels and levels. Just like in a game, there's levels. New missions, new maps. All deriving from the source. Nature, Mama. So one must tap back into the source to become all. Really, one is nothing, but one is everything. Nothing is everything, because nothing leaves room and space and growth for everything. So one must empty the cup. One must empty their cup to receive, download, reflect new information, keep updating, keep breaking through levels of consciousness to update and update and update, so one can receive, and one always moving this way, spinning in the cycle. But it's always in the now. Time does not exist. The now exists. The now is always changing. But the now is still. The now is now. We're coming into a time of nothingness, a time of non-verbal communication, where one will not have to speak. one won't have to speak. One will feel. One will act upon feelings and what is felt, and let one's internal GPS, the heart, lead. But in a synthetic, unnatural environment, one cannot operate on the heart, because the heart is being polluted, the heart is being poisoned, the heart is being affected by lower vibrations, lower energy, low frequencies. That's distorting communication in one's being from connecting to the source, connecting back to what is. One must pick up their cross, walk the narrow, righteous path back to the source, back to oneness, back to Mama, back to nature, back into the heart chakra. One must do this. One must do this. The time is now, family. The time is now. The time is now to pick up and go detached from anything that no longer serves you. Do the work. Research. Stay in tune. Stay focused. Love thyself. Break the spells of words. There is no separation. One is the only one in existence. I am the only one in existence. I am grateful. I am positive. I am capable of anything I put my mind to. I am everything in existence. I love myself. I am creating my reality based off thought and action. I am. I am is very powerful. Be mindful of what attaches I am, my, anything that derives from something that someone attaches themselves to. Be mindful of it. Because one is everything, but one is on a certain frequency, and certain frequencies are not compatible with other frequencies, just as one has devices that are not compatible with other devices. One must know what device one is, what frequency one is on, what frequency one has come from, and where one is going, vibrating at, and then act upon it, study, and raise and update the iOS system of one's device, and stay focused on path. Never look behind oneself. Live in the now. Focus on the now. Past and present do not exist. Now exists. When one focuses on the now and lives in the now, one creates. One will master. One will become the orchestra. I will become the orchestra of my own reality and manifest what one needs in my own reality. Move the mind, still the body. Become a magnet. I am magnetically attracting everything one needs. These are positive affirmations. Om, sound of the universe. I am a living example of magnetic attraction. One is showing you the way. One is showing one the way. My reflections. I am showing one the way. The path. The keys to the kingdom. Reflecting the light and the knowledge that one was given to all, to pick up the information for one's lifetime, to manifest this lifetime or the next. All paths lead to the source. One will eventually have to come to this understanding and this conscious level. of thought. Love is understanding. One must understand thyself. One must understand self to understand others, other reflections. When one observes and analyzes and focuses on oneself, one will have great understanding of things around them, beings around them, fragments of the Christ consciousness and frequencies. This is the consciousness one must come to. Peace, love, and light, family. I love myself.